Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and today we're going to take a look at a very obscure Hungarian early Cold War submachine gun. This is the Kucher K1, and I really hope I'm getting that name right. I'm probably not, but we're just going to go with it for today. So the backstory here is in Hungary, like many other countries at the end of World War II, there was actually a surprising shortage of small arms. But in Hungary, the political leadership didn't want to develop new domestic small arms designs. Instead, they very specifically wanted to emulate the Soviet Union. And so rather than do their own design, they got licenses to manufacture Soviet guns. And in this case, this would be specifically the Mosin-Nagant 9130 and the Papasha 41, both of which they got licenses, and production at FEG began on both of those guns in approximately 1950. So that's what's going on the small arms side at large. Now we have a gunsmith, a designer by the name of Josef Kucher, who has been developing small arms since the 1930s. He was a partner of Pál Király. He was heavily involved in a bunch of Király's designs, namely the submachine guns made for SIG, the like KPMO, KPMS, KMKO, all of those guns, as well as the Hungarian 39M and 43M, and the 44M that was in development but never actually went into production. Now, in 1947, after the war ends, when the communist takeover of Hungary is happening, Pál Király nopes out and he goes to the Dominican Republic, where he helps set up an arms factory, and he does work down there for a while. His partner, Kucher, stays in Hungary. Now, Hungary is manufacturing the Papasha 41 as its like standard submachine gun. Kucher thinks that's kind of a cruddy gun. And in particular, he thinks that the fixed wooden stock makes it way too bulky for a lot of applications for submachine guns, namely things like officers who want a compact gun to carry and armored vehicle crews who have limited amounts of space to store small arms in. So despite the fact that the political leadership didn't want to do any domestic arms development, Kucher gets permission to develop his own submachine gun specifically for those specialized applications. Now, it has to be in 7.62 Tokarev, so it can use the same ammunition as the Soviet pattern guns. And it specifically is going to be made with a collapsing or a folding stock to make it very compact. So Kucher takes the work that he had done on Danuvia's 44M submachine gun and continued to develop it, turned it into something that was economical, very simple, and compact. Now, in the summer of 1949, he has his first developmental version ready. They make a run of 30 of them, and they're tested in late 1949. They find some issues, they find some problems. This is kind of the normal thing that happens with small arms testing. They make a new batch of 25 more guns with some improvements to them, and those are tested in late 1950. And then a year later, November 11th, 1951, the gun is formally accepted and adopted into Hungarian military service as the K1 light submachine gun, the Kucher K1. So let's dive in here and let me show you all of its features. All right, based on this, I think we really have to assume that it was Pál Király who had the aesthetic sense among the Hungarian submachine gun designers. This may be an economical and efficient design, but man, to my mind, this is one of the ugliest submachine guns that I think I've ever laid eyes on. So, digging into it a bit, we have a magazine release down inside here, well protected by this oversized magazine well. This looks very much like a PPS-43 Sudaev magazine. It is clearly based on the Sudaev, so I have a Sudaev magazine body here as a comparison. These are both 35 round 7.62 by 25 millimeter Tokarev magazines, but if we look at the catches, there are a few subtle differences in the magazine catch designs here, and as a result, PPS-43 magazines do not quite work. So I can take this and I can put it into the gun, but it does not, I can mostly put it in, but it does not lock in place. So they look the same. The magazines, however, are not. Helpfully, however, the magazines are serialized, and you can tell this is a serial number specifically like distinctive to the K1. So the DA prefix, I believe, is probably the only prefix that they used. I think, I'm guessing here, but I suspect the D is for Danuvia, which is the factory that made them, and then A was the serial number prefix, and then there would have been A up to 10,000. We'll talk about production numbers in a few minutes, but this helpfully allows you to distinguish between these magazines and Papa-Shah mags if you can't remember the subtle differences in the locking bits. There is also, by the way, an over-travel stop here, and that is unique to the Danuvia gun, but it's only on the left side. So that was a K1 magazine, but it's not actually a matching magazine to this gun. You can see here our serial number is DA 5700 and change. 1954 production date. 02 is the code for the Danuvia factory. 01 was FEG. 02 was Danuvia, and Danuvia is where all of these guns were made. The rear sight is a 2-position notch, flips back and forth 50 and 100 meters. The front sight is the sort of big affair here. It is a protective shrouded round front post. That front sight is actually one continuous piece with a 2-chamber muzzle brake. So you can see this whole assembly pins onto the barrel right there. You can drift the front sight left and right to adjust your windage should you need to. And you can screw that in and out to adjust your elevation. Mechanically, this is a simple blowback open bolt gun. It uses the safety mechanism from the Papa-Shah, so if you take this catch on top of the bolt and snap it inward, that locks the bolt in place. You can do that when the bolt's forward or backward, and if you lock it in place while the bolt's back, pulling the trigger doesn't do anything because this is locking the bolt in place. So that's the only safety mechanism. There is a semi-auto selector here on the left side. E is semi-auto, and S, this is a stiff safety lever, S is full auto. The pistol grip is kind of weirdly large. The stock is kind of also weirdly large. In order to unfold the stock, we have a latch on the back. Push that in, and you can unfold the stock. It's worth pointing out here, if you have a magazine in the gun, you can fold and unfold the stock, but you have to have the butt plate just in the right orientation as it goes past the magazine in order to clear. So the stock does lock in the extended position. We have this locking catch right there. And when I push the tab in the back, that's what I'm unlocking, is that bit right there. The butt plate does not have any positive lock to it. It's just held in place by tension. So it folds forward like that when it's stowed underneath. All right, in order to disassemble this, we have a center plug in this end cap. I need to push that in, and then I can rotate the end cap itself. It's going to go about 90 degrees, and then the end cap comes off. It has a contained recoil spring here with a telescoping, there we go, telescoping guide rod. And then this is actually kind of curiously complicated. There's a heavy or hard, like a fiber buffer there. Not that much different than what was in the late production Papa-Shahs, by the way. But when I push this in, then the rear end cap rotates, and you can see we have 2 lugs here that lock the end cap into the receiver. So that's what disassembly is doing. Then I can just pull the bolt back, pull the bolt handle out. The bolt comes out, and this is extremely simple. It's just a big solid chunk of bolt. There's our extractor right there. Fixed firing pin. Really not much going on here. That's the sear, or the sear catch. That's where the fire control group is going to hold on to this until it's released to go forward and fire. And you can see the sear there dropping as I pull the trigger. If I put this back into semi-auto, the ejector is manufactured as part of this sheet metal magazine well. You can see it's inside right there. It kind of comes up from the top of the magazine well and it's folded over. Oh, yep, there it is on the inside. And that's it. That's all there is to it. That's field stripped. There really isn't anything else that readily comes off the gun. It's a very simple, had to be pretty darn cost-effective gun to manufacture. Now, to comment for a minute on the designer, Josef Kucher, by 1952, he had moved on from this design, which was essentially complete at that point, to his next project, which was a full-fledged machine gun. But in 1953, he is sent to prison. So he was a rare example of someone in the government bureaucracy who had very real legitimate talent. He had a proven skill in small arms engineering. He wouldn't have been partnered with Kucher for so long if he hadn't. And, well, he fell victim to politics. This is, of course, a political system where denouncement and sending political opponents to prison is a not uncommon thing, and that's what happens to Kucher. So he spends a couple years in prison. He's released from prison in 1956, goes back to work for Danuvia, where he continues to work for the remainder of his life until he passes away in 1976. In 1992, he was posthumously pardoned, which I suppose is a nice gesture. Didn't really fix anything for him because he was, well, dead at that point. Hungary wouldn't end up creating another domestic submachine gun after Kucher's until 1986. And that would be the KGP-9, which is an AK-based submachine gun. So quite a dry spell, like a almost 35-year dry spell in Hungarian submachine gun development. If you're interested in the KGP-9, by the way, I do have a video on it, and I'll link to that in the description text below. Very cool to get a chance to take a look at a K1. These are exceptionally rare guns today, obviously. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.